What is up, everybody? This is Lyle, No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. I'm coming at you from the Quick Trip with a K in DeSoto, Iowa, I-80 exit 110. According to the sign, it says that this is John Wayne's birthplace. Not a huge fan, but I'm going to cut him some slack based on the time period that he was raised in. I'm about 30 miles away from my delivery tomorrow at noon, so I got a good 24 hours to relax, so that's why I ran out here as hard as I could. There's another Quick Trip that's a little bit better than this Quick Trip, that's a little bit closer, but I would have to cross over I-35 and then backtrack. So it's 17 miles away from the delivery, but I gotta drive and come back. So I figured this would be good enough. It's a smaller Quick Trip. It's probably got about 14 spots in it. So if you're ever in the area, check it out. So what I want to talk about today are 3 questions that were asked over the course of the last 10 days or so. One was regarding wind speeds. So at what wind speed do I shut down or just not continue to drive it? So we're going to talk about that. The next one is in regards to the missing Prime driver, Jason Pearson, that was found, I don't know, about a month after he went missing, 20 feet away from his truck. I'm going to touch on that. And then the third question was asking my opinion on if I think that load choice is available or still available, and if it's not available, when do I think it will become available? All right, so first thing I want to tackle is the wind speed scenario. Now, first of all, I'm going to say that drive within your comfort zone, all that kind of stuff. If you're coming into trucking, wind doesn't necessarily bother me, although I have shut down because of wind. Actually going on home time one time, empty trailer, and leaving the Cheyenne, Wyoming Walmart, and I'm probably 80 miles away from the terminal, and ended up shutting down on a off ramp for about 4 hours while that wind died down. So in terms of at what wind speed you shut down at, there really isn't a particular wind speed that you would shut down at, or that I would shut down at, because there's a ton of different factors that are in there. How heavy is my load? Am I driving at day or night? You know, at night your long-term vision is going to be cut down a little bit. What are the road conditions like? Is it wet? Is it icy? Is it icy patches? Is the wind consistent, or are there some gusts in there? I'm not sure if I said weight of the load, but weight of the load is going to be another factor. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is at Prime, and I'm sure with many other companies, you know, you rolling the trailer over, you were going to be on your own. Now, I've known people that have rolled trailers and their contracts were terminated at Prime, and I've known a couple people that have rolled a trailer and are still working at Prime. The one that I'm most familiar with that rolled and was still able to stay at Prime was somebody that was lucky enough that a police officer was there that said that it wasn't their fault. But if you're if you're out there on your own and you flip it, you might as well start packing your truck while it's on its side, because that's going to be about how quick it's going to be. So, you know, what do I do if I know it's going to be extremely windy? And most of the time it's going to happen in Wyoming. Sometimes you'll get it on I-70 in Colorado, Kansas. Where I see it the most is I-80 in Wyoming. So we know that you got 2 way stations on either end of Wyoming, depending on what direction you're going. When I've gone through Wyoming and I felt comfortable with my weight, I felt comfortable with the road conditions, all that kind of stuff. The wind might be a little bit strong. I have once I got past the way station, I slid my tandems to the rear just to give me a little bit more stability through the wind. In terms of when I really would get cautious, and I haven't been in this situation to a degree that I felt uncomfortable, was if you were driving on ice and that wind is blowing, the last thing you want is that trailer getting a little bit away from you. So I would say that the conditions have more to do with it than the wind speed. And again, you could have, pick your wind speed, winds that are blowing, but are there gusts? The gusts are what's gonna, like, if you're driving and the wind speed is constant, then there's really nothing to worry about, because you're obviously driving and not getting blown over. It's the gusts that you need to worry about. So that's my thoughts on that as far in regards to wind speed. In regards to the missing driver that was found, in terms of what is my only issue with how things were handled when that driver went missing had nothing to do with if the driver went missing or what anybody's thoughts were, if he went missing on his own or whatever. It's when nobody was clear what circumstances this driver went missing in, that becomes a safety issue. So I thought that something like that should be brought to the drivers. There was another driver in Philadelphia, and I'm trying to recall this the best I can, but she had to park on the side of the road, as far as my best recollection. Had to go check in. When she comes back from checking in at the receiver, somebody was in the middle of breaking into her trailer. So she confronted him, and they ran away, and nobody would have known about that had she not posted that on, I believe she posted it on Facebook. Now, again, I thought that was something that should be brought to a driver's attention, because that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this right now, that is a factor why I may not particularly go. I'm not sure what that receiver is in Philadelphia, but any of those receivers where I see something and it's like park on the side of the road and walk, no, I'm not sure I want to do that. And I felt, a lot of people are familiar with I think it's a receiver mainly in New Jersey, where I ended up having to park like 3/4 of a mile away from the receiving office and walk up there in the middle of the night at 2:30 in the morning. That was like a Mobb Deep video walking up there, and I'm just like, you know what, that's a little bit concerning to me. So I don't fault anybody on not getting involved with the search of this driver or anything like that. I do believe that the information is important, because in the same breath I'm speaking this in, I'm going to say that, not long ago there was a trailer that was missing, and they made sure that information was put out, and I believe there was a bonus put out on who could find that trailer. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that was the case. So information is power, and I think that information should be given out. So that's my thoughts on that. In regards to the load choice board program, that's not really anything that I keep, I don't really keep that on top of my mind, or I'm not like trying to stay in the mix on that, because the load choice program is something that was available to me probably 3.5 years ago, like soon after I first got, kind of got out on my own. Within 6 months, I think it was available. And when I was asking about it, I wasn't asking about it from any other standpoint than there was a period of time when it was taking me a little while longer than I would like to get dispatched on a load. And I remember the load that pushed me over the edge was I was in Boston, and I'd been hitting all these tolls going to my receiver, and then I was at a receiver that you couldn't stay at, so I had to leave the receiver and guess what direction was the right direction to go, and I made the wrong guess, and I ended up paying tolls going to where I was going to shut down, and tolls on the way back going the other direction. And that's when I asked my fleet manager about it, and we had a conversation about it. He said, you know what, if that's something that you want to do, you could do it, but if this is really what the main issue is, then we could try to do a little bit better on that. I've never had an issue in terms of not being on the load choice board. It might give you a little bit more freedom, but trust me, if you hear anybody that's saying that they think that things are better in terms of revenue or things like that being on the load choice board, I'm going to say that is emphatically false in regards to the information that I've received from people that are on it. There are some benefits to it, but I don't think that it makes that big of a difference, especially if you have a good relationship with your fleet manager. Now, what do I think it's going to come back? I think they're mad they rolled it out in the first place. So no, I don't think it's coming back. I think that if they could, they would bury their head in the sand and wish that this topic had never came up in the first place. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know that to be true, but it's certainly not anything that is mentioned at all. The only time you hear about the load choice board is when you hear drivers that are on it speaking about it, but you never hear anybody mention it at the corporate level at Prime. So those are my thoughts on all those things. I think I'm pretty happy that I did not go to Washington. I'm not sure if they're going to get blasted or not, but I do know Southern California is getting hit pretty good, and I wanted to make it across I-80 before any action came through. So I'm out here. I'm not sure what my reload's going to look like. I'm not delivering on the best day in the world. Delivering at noon on New Year's Eve. Well, I don't think meat plants really care. I think they got people out there working on Christmas, so I'm sure there's some meat plants somewhere close around here that I might be picking up at, but I really don't have that many hours left. Well, I got enough to do some stuff.
You have 1 hour and 30 minutes of remaining drive.
I got 3 hours and 39 minutes left on my 70. Actually, I don't have that. Well, I do. 3 hours, 39 minutes left on my 70. I got 5:14 coming back at midnight. So let's just round that up to 9-ish. Let's say that I burn an hour between on duty and driving up to this place. So I'll have 8 hours. So that's enough to pick up a load, run it out a little bit before I got major recaps coming. So. But one thing I want to tell you guys that are, I think a lot of people are hoarding their hours with this whole, I'm just going to drive 8.5 hours and all. Listen, the load's going to take how long the load's going to take. You out here kind of messing around and, putting in late work to say that, you're doing it so you always have hours. The hours are going to be there. Now, one thing I will say is, what you want to do is time your as best you can, because this is something I thought about. When your hours are going to be kind of limited to some degree, I want that to be in an area that I like. So I could see myself running between Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan, doing that kind of stuff, rather than being in the Northwest and having to get bounced. Well, I don't even know what short loads they have around there. So, but certainly not really wanting to be out there in California running on low hours. Although, you know what, I did do that one time, and I probably spent a good week in California. That was not the worst. That was not the worst week in the world. But I definitely don't want to be short hours in the Northeast, bouncing all up and down between Maine and Connecticut and down to New Jersey and then back across to, I don't want that. So anyway, that's a totally different subject. Since I have a good 24 hours to chill, I'm going to just come back here and catch up on some rest. That is the one thing that when I was talking in my training videos about running hard and why I run full clocks and all that kind of stuff, especially in a team environment, it's because I want to get where I'm going to rest, like as a team truck, 24 hours, almost, 34 hours possibly if I get out there soon enough, because that rest matters to me. This little bit of rest, like if we take breaks, a whole or along the way, those little bitty micro rests don't do me as good as like one good rest where I could just go to sleep, wake up when I want to wake up. Both of us are chilling, and both of us are refreshed once the load is done. Totally different topic, but I do appreciate you guys stopping by No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. I might have forgot some stuff on that wind deal, but if there's one thing I want to say about that is be very conservative with when you shut down in any weather condition, because like they basically told you in all the meetings, if some shit happens, you're on your own. So keep that in the back of your mind. Anyway,